Hi, everybody. Mitch Chan, I'm here. Thanks for joining me today. This is this week's security news update. First, in the video blog section, we've released a new video on NIST SB 800 171 Revision 3, which was just released, and also the movement in the CMMC Part 48 regulation. So that's in our video blog, which you can find at Cybersecurity, the way we spell it, .us. In security and privacy alerts, GE Healthcare issues guidance for mitigating 11 bugs in their ultrasound devices. The good news is the devices will work unless someone hacks them, I guess. The bad news is that even if the device is not connected to the internet, if someone has 60 seconds alone with the device, they can totally compromise it, own it, destroy all the data, ransomware it, anything, just basically totally own the device. So they could also disable all those security features. So, healthcare devices, medical IoT devices, whatever you want to call them, are definitely high risk, horribly patched. The hospitals are challenged. The manufacturers don't want to deal with it because it's expensive and they don't make any money off of it. But the feds are going to get in the middle of this and force the issue. That's the only way it's going to get fixed. Next, under reference, CISA rolled out a new set of guidelines to mitigate AI risks, specifically to critical infrastructure. That was their motivation. But, you're critical to you. So I would say if you're using AI, you ought to be checking out these guidelines and trying to figure out how you can make them apply to you. In the patches department, as I said, this is not your father's Oldsmobile or iPhone. I'm not sure whether Steve Jobs is looking down from up there and saying, "Oh, what happened? What happened? What's going on here?" Until literally a few years ago, the Apple operating systems were very, very simple. You could only run one task at a time. And then, they decided that they were going to go off and basically implement Unix. And now they have a very complicated operating system with very sophisticated apps, and these apps have bugs just like every other one. They got caught up in the features war just like Microsoft has. So now they're saying, here's 2 more patches, and I've lost track of how many of these they've had this year. 2 more patches to go patch because they're being actively exploited now. And we seem to hear about this, every month, sometimes multiple times a month. So, the good news is Apple tends to be fairly good about pushing those patches to you, but it could take a month. And now, in these days of exploitation, a month is an eternity. So, you can go in and force the update, which, if you're using your computer for anything moderately sensitive, you ought to go force the issue. Next, Google is patching the third actively exploited one more time, 0-day in a week in Chrome. And remember, every browser other than Safari and Firefox are Chrome. And, Safari, at least, for sure, has their own set of problems. So, now would be a good time to go patch your browser. In the legal and legislative department, breach forums, which is a dark web marketplace for hackers to, show off how brilliant they are. They were seized for a second time by the cops. They took down the web domain, the dark web host, the escrow process, Telegram accounts. But unfortunately, it's really a hard problem for the cops. I feel for them. This is not a simple problem to solve. Also, in the legislative legal department, the cell phone carriers say they don't sell your data, but the FCC just fined the carriers collectively, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, almost $200 million because they actually do. Now they're saying, gee, that's not fair. We stopped doing this a few years ago when you caught us at it. And the fact that it takes you several years to fine us, well, this is history. And AT&T even came up with an even more creative answer, which is, well, we sold the data, but we told these people that they had to get your permission before they could use it. And if they didn't do it, well, that's their fault. That's on them, not on us. My guess is AT&T collected the data. They sold the data. It's on them. But, the lawyers will fight, and that's fine. It's good revenue for the law firms. And eventually the FCC and the carriers will agree to something or other. Next, Deloitte, the big consulting firm, has put out a board audit committee practices report. They do this every year. This is number 30 or number 3. And cybersecurity was ranked number 1 or number 2 by more than half of the respondents. It was ranked number 1 by about like 30 or 30-something%, as I recall. And then enterprise risk management was rated number 1 or number 2 for a third of the people. So collectively, cybersecurity and risk, that's kind of the hot button. So if you're not looking at that, you're not thinking about that, then, well, you're not doing what the other guys are doing, and you ought to ask why. But I think that ought to be where you should be looking. And if you need help educating your board, the Deloitte report is available for free. And breaches, of course, there's never any shortage of breaches. The auction house Christie's, mega auction house Christie's, got hit by a ransomware attack just before they were getting ready to auction off what they think would be about $840 million of art. They call it a technology security issue. Isn't that cute? And they turned off their website. They did put back a shell of a website on Monday. Tuesday's auction will only allow phone and in-person bids, no online bidding. And one of the pieces of auction, one of the parts of it was delayed a couple of days. But obviously, if they can't keep their website secure, if I was a Christie's customer, I'd question about, well, could they actually keep my art or whatever else they're auctioning secure? So definitely embarrassing for Christie's. Next, Europol, talk about embarrassing, confirms an incident after the data was auctioned. Now, of course, until the data was auctioned, they said, no problem here. But once the data was there on the dark web for everybody to see, they say, none of our core law enforcement systems were breached. But still, the intel was very sensitive. It revealed methods and sources, and it was a portal that they used for collaborating. Definitely embarrassing for the folks at Europol. Next, hacker leaks the data stolen from HSBC and Barclays Banks, 2 big UK-based banks, including source code. And obviously, source code allows hackers to better understand how these guys' systems work. So that's not, they're not going to make them very happy. The hackers broke into a third-party contractor. One more time, supply chain risk. I can't emphasize enough. They stole SQL databases, source code, Java files, other data, and of course, it's now available for sale on a Russian forum. Sun Finance, which is a lending protocol, smart contract lending protocol, was exploited for at least $20 million as an attacker was able to exploit a vulnerability in the contracts. Gee, it's software, software has bugs in it. Big surprise. And lastly, in the breaches department for this week, the city of Wichita shut down a bunch of their systems, and they are now admitting that the attackers stole law enforcement data, which includes, stuff like, what you'd find in a law enforcement report to the police or investigation report, that sort of thing. They also got names, socials, driver's license, payment card. So it's a hot mess. And that also follows announcements just in the last week or two from St. Helena, California, and Macon-Bibb County in Georgia. So the public sector is under attack. They're under attack mostly because their security measures are not so great, and they need help. So it's just kind of the way it is. Next, in the daily reports, the feds have issued a warning about Black Basta, a ransomware group. They're the ones that attacked, amongst 499 others, Ascension Health. Ascension Health is diverting ambulances and using pencils now because their computers are off. These guys have been around since 2022, not Ascension Health, Black Basta. And the ransomware demands, they're high. They're well into 6 figures. But they're not using high-tech attacks. They're using stolen credentials. They're buying credentials. They're looking for missing patches. and they apparently are very effective. Next, it feels to me, because I was around back then, like 1995 all over again. It was 1995 when the feds thought that they could outlaw encryption, and in fact, putting people like Phil Zimmerman, who invented PGP, in jail and putting him on trial. It didn't work very well for them then. Now they're trying to do the same thing to the folks who are developing cryptocurrency. In particular, one of the exchanges, they outlawed, not an exchange, I'm sorry, it was a tumbler, a mixer. So, what they're basically saying is, you knew that bad guys were using this and you did not, shut off the software. They got a conviction, that's fine, but you're not going to stop, you're not going to be able to arrest and convict, a million software developers. It's just not possible. The government needs to come up with a better strategy than that. And they've never gotten over losing the fact that they couldn't outlaw encryption. And, maybe they won't get over this either, but it's, 25 years, 30 years later, and the encryption wars are still going on. And I think we're probably going to see the same thing with cryptocurrency. Next, I'd like my privacy law extra strong, please. In Vermont, they have, it's probably the strongest privacy law that was just passed by the legislature. The governor has not signed it yet. Supposedly, he's got some reservations, so we do not know whether he's going to sign it, but it does include a limited private right of action, if people can sue. But the interesting thing is about the private right of action is it doesn't go into effect until 2026. It only is part of the law for 2 years until 2028. And then it sunsets. And then the legislature's got to decide if they're going to renew it or not. So, people are claiming that, the world is going to end if this law goes into effect. I don't think that's the case, but, we didn't see that happen in California, where there's also limited private right of action. So we'll see what happens in Vermont, but it is going to be one of the strongest laws in the country. And in the news bites, the White House is prepping new cyber rules for healthcare. The healthcare sector basically doesn't want to spend the money, doesn't want to pay the people, doesn't want to put the systems and processes in place. I understand that nobody does, but the hackers are having a field day. It's going to change healthcare well north of $1 billion. Probably half of their 2024 revenue, not profit, revenue, to deal with this mess. And the feds are saying, we got to put an end to this. That this is not working. Next, the feds are also launching something called Project Fortress, which is an effort to help the banks from imploding due to cyber attacks. That's probably a good thing. Obviously the large banks, the Wells and Cities and Chases of the world, they can afford to spend a large amount of money, but even the second tier and certainly the third and fourth tier banks don't have that. So they probably do need help from the feds. Next, there's a Texas-based third-party insurance administrator. Took a year to notify the breach victims that their data had been compromised. I got a question about whether taking a year to notify people should even be legal. Whether, taking that long is in and of itself breaking the law. It's not today. Today it's perfectly fine. But telling people after a year that, a year ago your data got compromised and the bad guys have probably been using it for a year, not terribly helpful. Next, you might be hiring North Koreans as remote workers and not know it. There's apparently some interesting activities going on to disguise the fact that you're really hiring North Koreans when you really think you're hiring Americans. And finally, Google demos going back, this is not 1995, this is 1984, coming to a phone near you. And I think Google's heart's in the right place, but assuming they do this, Apple tried doing this last year, and it really did not turn out well for them. Google apparently does not read the news, so they're basically trying it again. In the case of Apple, it was saying, trust us, we're going to scan all of your data on your phone for child sexual abuse material, which nobody likes. But once you have the ability to scan it for that, you could scan it for, say, anything which is critical of the president of your favorite country, whatever that might be, or anybody who is searching for information about abortion or about LGBTQ information or anything else that the government thinks is not good. In the case of Google, what they are showing, what they demoed, this is not a production capability yet. What they demoed was the ability to listen in on your phone calls and tell you when someone you're talking to is trying to scam you. Like I said, I think their heart's in the right place, but boy, once you open that door, I think it's curtains in terms of any kind of privacy. And Google is not going to have a leg to stand on to say, well, we really don't want to scan whatever it is, Mr. Government, whatever you want us to do. We don't want to do that. We clearly can. We've demonstrated that we can, but we don't want to. That's probably not going to do well in terms of keeping the government happy. So with that, if you have any questions, you need any help, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. And until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for watching. For more information or to purchase this or any other of our board or executive services, visit us at cybersecurity.com. Call us at 303-887-5864 or email us at rh@cybersecurity.com. Goodbye.